I'm talking SharePoint here, and this is really for people that are just getting started in SharePoint, beginners who maybe have been tasked with administrating a site. And I just want to give you a quick introduction on how to get around. And I think the most important thing, the number one thing that I've always told people is be aware of the gear here. This gear is going to allow you to get everywhere you need to get in SharePoint. It's going to allow you to see everything that's in the site. It's also going to allow you to get to the settings, not only for the site, but for libraries and lists as well. So if you click on the gear here, you're going to see this site contents, and I'm going to start there actually. So let's go ahead and click into that. And if we look at the site contents, we're going to see everything that lives in this site. So the documents library, I have a list here called gift ideas. That list lives there. And I have, you have site assets and site pages. Anything in the site is going to be here. So if it's a document, it's going to be in a document library somewhere. If it's a list, it's going to be in here if it's a list item in the list. So even if you don't see it here on the left-hand nav, or there's no other way to get to it, it's going to be here in the site contents. So really important. The other important thing here is the recycle bin. So if you click into that, you're going to see anything that's been recently deleted, and you can restore it from here. And absolutely someone's going to delete something, right, at some point. So you're going to have to come in here and restore something probably. So that's really the site content. So if it's a piece of content, something that lives in the site, you can find it there in the site contents. And how do you get to that? You get to it by the gear. So moving on here, I want to look at settings. So if it's a settings, you're also going to get to it from the gear here. And for the site as a whole, that would be under the site information. You can see the site name. You can change it here if you want to. And also the description. You can change who can view it from here, and you can also delete the site. If you want to get a little more in-depth in the site settings, you can click on that, and this is going to show you everything that you can do or have access to do in this particular site. So if it's a setting that you can change, you will see it here. So I'm not going to go through all of this, and really you probably don't need a lot of this, but just be aware of that this is where this lives. And so continuing on the theme of settings, if you're in a library or a document library, you're going to need sometimes to go to the settings there. Maybe you want to change the versioning. Maybe you want to add a piece of metadata, another column here, and certainly you could do that here, but you can also do it from the settings. So again, I'm going to click on the gear. The gear is the most important thing here. And you're going to see library settings. Let's go ahead and click on that. Gives you the name. You can change the name here and the description. But if you click on more, you'll see all of the settings available in the settings. And this is true of any SharePoint document library. These are the settings you can get. These are the settings you can change. And you can add a column here. You can look at the versioning. You can even work on the permissions for this document library from here if you want, let's say, to give someone direct access to this document library, but not the site. And then if I go to a list, it's going to be the same thing. You're going to want to click on the gear. I know I'm a broken record here, but the gear is so important. And anytime someone has asked me a question about SharePoint, and it's something specific, I'm always like, click on the gear. And so you should know where the gear is, because if you go for help, they're going to say, click on the gear probably. And so if you know right where that is, that's great. Then you click on, so in this example, we're in a list. So we're on our gift ideas list here, and we can click into list settings. And so we're going to see all of the settings for this list. And they're similar to the document library settings. You get the versioning. There's some advanced settings here. You can also change the permissions here for this particular list. So very important. The last thing I want to cover with the gear is the site permissions. So that's who has access, who doesn't have access. This can actually get pretty complicated, and it's where most questions come from. I'm just going to touch on it here, and maybe in a later video we can do a deeper dive on permissions. But again, if you look at the gear, Site permissions, that's what you want. Click on the site permissions. You can see all the groups here. And this has been pretty much standardized. I feel like most organizations are using this model of having an owners, a members, and a visitors group. The owners, full control, members, have can contribute and edit things, but they can't necessarily create new libraries or lists or things like that. And then visitors are just readers. So if you want to, you can add members here, and you can share the site with a whole nother group or a particular user. You can also go to this advanced permissions, and this is going to show you, this is kind of the old school look of permissions in SharePoint. And here you can grant access to a specific user or a new group. So you can give them direct full control access or put them in a group, which is what they would always suggest you do. And you can send an email if you do that. You can also create a group here if you want to add a new group. Let's say you have like a managers group that's going to have special rights to this site. You could create that group here and then permission that group to the site. So there's a little bit more to know here on the permission side if you want to get a little bit more in detail. But for now, and you can certainly click around in here and kind of check it out and play with it. The one thing I will say you should be very aware of is if you're an owner and you're in here and you're in this group and you remove this group, then bam, you're done. You don't have any access to the site anymore. And you can't go in and add yourself again because you don't have access. So then you're going to have to go to a site collection administrator, and they're going to have to kind of give you access. Depending on where you're at, that might take a while, and it's kind of embarrassing. So, and I've done it, and I'm sure a lot of other people have. So just be aware of that. So the thing I will leave you with is, if you think about SharePoint and you think about doing stuff in SharePoint, the first thing you should think about is the gear. And it's going to appear here in a minute. It's up here. It's on every SharePoint site. And if you're familiar with it and where you can go with it and these things, site contents and site information, you're going to be an expert in SharePoint in no time. All right, so that's it. And I will talk to you later.